Most days seem to go by pretty well, but sometimes the world has a way of reminding you just how easy you've had it. Until right now, that is. These are the things we all struggle with, some less than others, some a whole lot more than others, but to each of us, it's real. It's hard, and sometimes it's painful. We all go through it. But always remember, it's not the end or even a hard stop. It's just the beginning of something new. I've been avoiding making this video for a long time now, but I feel like if I don't make it, if I don't say it all out loud, it's just gonna keep going the same way for me and keep me where I am. Where I am is stuck. So here we go. We all go on social media or YouTube and we see all these people we know, well, probably more likely that we don't really know them, but they're smiling and laughing and everything just falls right into place for them. We do this day in and day out, wishing somehow we had that in our lives. We wish we knew this or knew that, or man, I wish my place looked as great as hers does. We're all unintentionally sabotaging ourselves. These are just highlight reels, perfectly picked and curated to get the exact impression that that person posting wants us to see. But it's not real life. Sometimes life happens though, and sometimes life is tough. Now this is not my normal style video. I want you to know that right off the start. I won't be showing you any new ways to grow things or anything like that. This is more of an update and hopefully some encouragement to anyone that is struggling right now. It's been a rough few months for me. I've gotten lots of questions asking where I am. What am I doing? Are you just done making videos? So today I want to answer some of those questions. But this is a video of struggle and disappointment. This is a video of my own personal failures, no matter how trivial they may seem. And this is also a video of loss. But more than anything else, this is a video about standing back up. For me, this is going to be kind of cathartic, a chance to let some of this stuff go. My hope is that by hearing all this, you won't feel so alone when life comes at you really hard and you start to feel overwhelmed yourself. You're not the only one. I want you to know that. And I also want you to know you are absolutely not alone. So there's a lot of things worse in life than disappointment. Loss and death is certainly one of those things, and we'll talk more about that later. But for now, I want you to know that disappointment can show up out of nowhere, and often we can feel like it might even be our own fault. One of the biggest things contributing to my long absence here on this channel is just that. I'm just disappointed. I'm disappointed in people, I'm disappointed in the world, which I suppose is also people, and I'm disappointed in technology. It just shouldn't be this tough to deal with these types of things in life. You might be surprised to hear this, but over the last few years, I've received hundreds, maybe even thousands of hate comments. Some say I basically don't know what I'm doing, or things like, that's not how so-and-so does it on YouTube, or you talk too much, or you talk too fast, or you talk too slow, you repeat yourself. If you're from Texas, why don't you have an accent? Or my personal favorite, you're hurting people and the earth with your bad information. Now, I've always been pretty good at just letting things roll off my back, but after a while, I have to admit, my own self-doubt crept up. And I could hear those comments over and over again in my head, even when I was sleeping. The thing is, I know that I don't know everything. And that's one of the reasons why videos take so long to come out. I test, I retest, I test again before I show you anything. I don't want to mislead you, and I certainly don't want to hurt anyone or anything, including this beautiful planet that's been gifted to us. This left me struggling with every concept I had, every experiment I did. None of it was good enough. It was all just a joke or it was wrong. Those videos sit on a hard drive right now, never to be seen and never to be edited. I mean, maybe they will. But I never deleted any of those comments, by the way. Well, that's not actually true. I did delete one comment really early on, and it was just laced with profanities and absolute hate speech, and frankly, I just had enough. I do still respond to every single one of them, though. And sometimes I'm a bit snarky, I have to admit that, which I'm not exactly proud of at all. But they're all there for you to see. I don't hide them, I don't take them away. And I'm going to keep leaving them up, too. You'll understand why a little later in the video. But I'm not just disappointed in people. I'm disappointed in the world as a whole. I suppose that's people too, like I said, but it's just on a bigger scale. I don't mean what's going on in a larger sense. That's a whole other issue. But I'm talking about the idea that somehow the world or our society seems to believe it's okay to aggressively hurt or attack others and just be downright nasty. Let me explain. In December of 23, I suddenly started receiving a lot more views on my videos than normal. What YouTube calls an external source was feeding my video impression rate. Now, if you don't know what that is, impressions on YouTube are basically how many times the platform puts your videos in front of someone to potentially click and watch it. Now, this and particularly audience retention are the two biggest things that make a YouTube channel successful or a complete failure. Basically, if a high number of people are still watching your video after 30 seconds, the platform knows that this video is giving people what they searched for, and therefore is a good video to put in front of more people. Fast forward a few months, and my impressions had dropped to nothing. I mean, almost zero. There was actually a day where the platform didn't put any of my videos in front of anyone. I mean, no one, not even one person. After watching a video from Jag at Daisy Creek Farms here on YouTube, it all started to click in and fall in place. He'd gone through the exact same thing. The short version is those external sources were coming into my channel from outside of YouTube and watching for exactly 29 seconds and then leaving. This tells YouTube that the video I'm posting is not what I presented it to be and that people won't want to watch it. Bam, the views stopped. And when views stop, the income stops. Now, this isn't all about money, but the income I receive from these videos is what I use to keep making videos. It pays for equipment, cloud services, materials to expand the garden, and experiment. It pays for all of this, things I can't possibly afford with my daytime job income. My YouTube income dropped to less than 10% of what it was. Take taxes out, and that's less than 6%. I've talked way too long about this already, and Jag has an unbelievably good video explaining the whole thing. If you're interested, I'll link down below in the description, and while you're there, give him a sub. His gardening how-to videos are amazing, and so is he. Thank you, Jag, for opening my eyes to this. I really appreciate it. Now, there was nothing I could do about this except hope it turned around. For a long while, I had no desire to make a video. Number one, everything I was saying was wrong. And number two, between my day job, real life needs, and editing video, I didn't leave much room to garden and do what I actually love. Why does society think it's okay to intentionally and actively seek out a person and try to destroy what they've worked on? Personal gain? Just general resentment? I don't know. There's just something wrong with the world right now. But I made a decision. I realized something. None of that matters. Not everyone is a crappy person. In fact, 99% of you that I interact with here are really great people. We learn together. You teach me as much as I teach you, and you're amazing. So I thought, let's just give it a try. So I fired up my computer. I put my self-doubt aside, opened a file, and started editing. What do you know? I can't edit with this software anymore. It was basically unusable. The software I'd used for so long was now painfully slow, and playback didn't match audio. It took me months to determine that it was a combination of my hardware and operating system update, one that I couldn't actually roll back for a lot of reasons, but it made the software completely useless to me. I tried my laptop, it wasn't much better. Plus I was completely out of memory and space to store and edit things on it. So I couldn't buy a new drive, and I couldn't afford a new $3,000 to $4,000 computer because the income had basically stopped. I just felt stuck. But I did get myself through that. And once I did, I thought, I can do this. Yeah, it's hard work. Yeah, you don't have the money or the time to do it all the time, but I do enjoy it. Something hit the roof. It's not all bad news though. Finally, a few days ago, I remembered that I had another editing program that would do most all of what I wanted it and needed it to do. The only problem was I'd have to learn to use it again and rebuild all my graphics and animations. Basically, I'd have to start all over with everything. I knew what I needed to do. I needed to stop listening to the haters. Stop worrying about those external sources. Stop fretting over technology and just go after it. And more importantly, just start sharing with you. The one who wants to be here to learn or interact or just talk. It's the whole reason I started this channel in the first place. If you're seeing this video, I did it. For reference, I shot this video on July the 7th, 2024. So take a look at when it was posted and you'll know how long it took me to get here. Now, the hurricane's on its way, so it's kind of weird, but you'll see. So for all you wondering, that's what I've been up to. I have a much better outlook than I did then, but while I was working through all of that, I was dealing with something else that a lot of people can relate to and have experienced, and it's called failure. Another really tough thing to talk about is failure. We all deal with failures and mistakes from time to time. It's one of those things that seems to come in waves. Everything's looking really good, then all of a sudden failures start to pop up and string together, and they can really slow down your own personal momentum and even alter your mental state. So as fall turned into spring, little mistakes started to combine into failures and just kept building as time went by. Last fall, I started my seeds like I always do. I planted everything out, planted my starter trays, and things were going pretty well. Unfortunately, I did have a slew of bad seeds that never came up. They were new varieties I was trying, and so it wasn't really ideal. No problem though, I'll just pick up some more seeds. So I rebought and restarted those seeds a few months later, and a few months too late. That was failure number one. Everything was gonna be way too late for the growing season. Now next came the weird weather, again. We had lots of cold, then extreme heat, then extended periods of cold again, all this out of season coming into the springtime. So I opted not to plant my warm weather seedlings for fear that they'd be stunted by the cold. Failure number two. By the time I planted them out, we'd gone from pretty good to scorching heat, and now I have tomatoes that are only a few feet tall and lots of other plants that are just not going to produce throughout the rest of the season. With the changing weather, bugs were running rampant. I did my best all the way into May, and I was able to keep most of them under control. Well, for the most part. The worms ate everything up. You can see this. Everything I planted may not put out much food, but I was trying to give it the best chance that I could. Now, on top of all that, my new in-ground row beds that I created over the fall, well, I dug the paths too deep, and I piled the soil way too high. The point was to create a water sink in the paths that would keep the plants moist even through the dry season. The dry season has started already, and we haven't had any rain in almost a month. Of course, Hurricane Beryl is here today. It's already starting to rain. It looks like it's going to get us, but that's probably not the best way to do it either. If it doesn't get us bad though, we won't have much rain again until late August or even September. Kind of a double-edged sword, I guess. But in the end, my new beds don't work as intended. They should have been conserving water, and they just aren't, and that's failure number three. Now, there's plenty of other failures and mistakes I could mention that have happened in this time frame, but some were just learning experiences and some are just mess ups. I'm definitely taking advantage of the things I can learn from, but some things just happen. At this moment, as I look around though, things aren't really so bad. Sure, I don't have tomatoes yet, and I might not until fall, but the thing is I've been working on for more than 2 years now is starting to come around. Things are growing and food is starting to come in. Unfortunately though, that's not the end of the story. The biggest failure was on its way. I didn't even step foot in this garden for almost 3 weeks, and that leads me to my next topic. This part's going to be really tough. I'm going to do my best to get through it, so if you just bear with me, I'd be grateful. Now, if you're fond of animals and don't like sad stories, I'll put a timestamp here somewhere on the screen so you can skip ahead. There's no shame in doing that at all. I probably would too, to be honest. In early June, I was finally getting the garden under control. The bugs had finally lightened up. I had a watering schedule that worked, sort of, and we were starting to finally get some food from the garden. Now, I don't have much time to work in the garden due to my day job, so I spent much of my time as I could on the weekends, working all day, both days, to try to keep everything going. That Saturday, it got hot. And I mean, it got really hot. No clouds, no wind, oppressive heat. The thermometer in the garden was read over 103 just in the sun. Hot or not though, I couldn't give up any more ground. I had to keep working at it. Now remember, at this time I was still trying to figure out why I couldn't edit videos. I hadn't figured it out yet, but I was determined even more to film and get ready for when I did. So I was out there putting up the shade cloth to try and protect my already stunted seedlings and get them moving forward again. I reworked some beds, cleaned things up. Life was good, hot, but good. Now you don't always see her, but always lurking right outside the angle of the camera is Allie. She's our beautiful, smart, loving, and protective Australian Shepherd mix. She's been part of our family for more than 12 years. If I'm in the garden, she's there. If I'm just out to take a look, she's right there with me. If I'm working with the chickens, she's right beside me. And that day was absolutely no different. She was out there with me all day long. I gave her cold water in the shade, but she was stubborn, and I'd have to coax her back to the edge of the woods over and over again just to enjoy the shade and to cool off a little bit. We were both there all day, and even though she listens pretty well most days in her late years anyway, she started viewing my comments as more of a suggestion. Now, it sounds like I'm upset, but I'm not. She just wanted to be where I was. In fact, a lot of times that meant laying on a newly sprouted sunflowers because it was the coolest place she could find in the garden. But hey, I love sunflowers too. I don't blame her. I replanted those a few times, by the way. In short, we both got overheated that day. I felt terrible for a few days, and so did she. After a few days, she was feeling much better, and so was I. She was eating more and started to drink more and be more like her old self. I could tell, though, that the heat had already been a little bit rough on her and taken some out of her. But she got to spend her days and nights indoors where the floor was nice and cool, and she never minded that. She loved it. That weekend turned into the work week. Tuesday morning, I had to work, and I had a meeting at 9:30. Allie sat with me on the porch in the cool of the morning while I made my calls and checked emails. to get things organized from the work day before. I got caught up on a phone call before the meeting started, so I rushed inside to my computer to start the meeting, completely forgetting that she was outside. When the meeting ended about 10:45, I realized she was outside still, and it was really hot. Now, she has her fan on the porch, which keeps her cool, but if left alone a little bit too long, she'd normally go looking for my parents to say hi or just go see somebody, which she did. And when I found her, she was sitting in the shade near my parents' garage, waiting for them to come by. She was exhausted. I was so angry with myself for forgetting. I was angry with her because she just probably hurt herself more from the heat. I coaxed her up from the shade to go to the house, but she knew she couldn't do it. Always wanting to be by me and please me, she tried anyway. She walked a few steps and looked at me like, hey man, I can't keep walking. So I picked up all 65 pounds of her in my arms and I carried her to the couple hundred feet to our back porch. I stood her up, but I could feel she didn't have the strength to stand, so I helped her lower herself down in front of the fan. She wouldn't take water, but I knew she loved ice, so I told her I loved her and I'd be back with some in a second. I kissed her on the forehead and I ran for the ice. When I got back less than 15 seconds later, she was gone. Laying there looking quietly and happily asleep in front of her fan. And she'd done that so many days and nights before. We placed her here in the garden. It's a shady spot where she liked to lay for hours. I haven't been back here much for a long time. Because when I do, I have to talk to her. I have to see her. And it just hurts too much. So today I'm here trying to push through, to move forward. I still see her out of the corner of my eyes sometimes. Crossing the garden rows. Loss is hard, but we have to keep moving forward. It's time for me to start moving forward. I want to do it. I will do it. Allie wants me to do it. And she'd probably be trotting right beside me the whole time too. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna move forward. So Hurricane Beryl is barreling in, so I need to get ready and get this garden finished up and prepared. Listen, I know that I'm gonna get hate comments. They're gonna fly on this one. But you know what, I'm good with that. I've made peace with it. I do wanna say that my disappointment, failures, losses are not the worst thing that can happen. There are plenty of people out there that have it way worse, but these are real for me. They did their work on me. And I know there are others out there right now that feel the same way. I tell everyone about these 4 things that I try to keep in my life and that help me get through during good times and in bad times. You need something to believe in, you need someone to love, you need something to do, and you need something to look forward to. When you ignore any one of these things, like I did for a bit, things get out of balance pretty quickly. So please don't ignore them in your life. I know this video has been very different from the others, but through all of the things I've talked about, I stand here in awe of what has come out of it somehow. Even with all the disappointments and failures, it's just beautiful. It's not perfect, but there's corn on the stalks. The new beds may not hold water, but they're still starting to fill in. And those tomatoes may be small, but the basil and sweet potatoes have taken off like crazy. There's even a few pumpkins that are ready to harvest, and a ton of purple whole peas. It was hard getting here, and I made up my mind to get through it the rest of the way. I just want you to know that you aren't alone. Remember that everything you see online that glitters isn't gold, and don't stress yourself trying to find that gold for yourself either. It's just fool's gold. Look at you and where you are right now. If you need to be sad, angry, or hurt, do it. Cry if you need to, but don't give in to it. Let it come out and then remind yourself that you are not alone in your struggles. Know that you can pick yourself up and turn things around right now. There's an old saying, I'm not sure where it came from or where it started. I think it was maybe Vince Lombardi, but it goes like this. It's not whether you get knocked down, it's whether you get back up. I'd like to change that a bit and say, getting knocked down is not what defines you. It's how you get back up that makes you who you are. Times get tough, you aren't alone. Find those 4 things and get back up. You deserve to overcome what's in front of you, 100%. Good night, Miss Allie. Ellie, what happened? Ellie, what happened? You get some snow on you?